A season, especially in the NFL, consists of 17 regular season weeks, followed by the 5 long weeks of the postseason. A journey that gets started back in March all the way till the beginning of February the next year. And this journey took us to an eventual champion for the season and one of the lowest scoring Super Bowls in history. The New England Patriots in the hard cap salary era, with all the different players that come and go, but with Tom Brady at the helm and Bill Belichick coaching, they won their franchise 6th Super Bowl championship by the score of 13-3 over the Los Angeles Rams. Tonight, we will recap that very game along with so many stories for the season and what to expect for next year. Welcome to the season finale of the Blitz Zone. Coming to you live from the studios of CTV in Staten Island, New York. I'm your host, Eric Rosen, and with me tonight for the second straight week, the Mac Daddy, Mr. Sean Dennis. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you, Eric, for having me. Happy Friday to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great weekend. And I just want to start off the show. My mother celebrated her 80th birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Mom. Love you. Hope you're watching the show. Hope you're enjoying it. Speaking of 80, is Tom Brady going to play till he's 80 years old? It seems like this guy, it doesn't matter. 41 years old, just throwing the ball over there. Bill Belichick, twice the age of Sean McVay, and just here we are again.
He's a cyborg.
The Patriots again. Yeah,
I think he's a cyborg sent through time, just like in the Terminator. Maybe he, for the company that's in that, the movie Terminator, the company that makes all the robots.
Sure, yes.
Basically, maybe that's Tom Brady. He is the bionic man. There's no limit with him. We're hearing stories now that there's a possible contract extension until his mid-40s.
Yeah, well, he definitely he agreed to next year at 42. It's like you said last week, he's a fine wine, just gets better and better and better with age. This was one game, though, where he wasn't quite the GOAT. We're going to talk about other things that happened in this game. You hit the nail on the head. 13-3 was the lowest scoring Super Bowl in history. At halftime, it was 2-0, which 3-0, but it was the second lowest, the 2-0 game that you mentioned in Super Bowl IX between the Steelers and the Vikings. Julian Edelman, I think, deserved to win the MVP. I really couldn't pinpoint anybody that statistically rose to that challenge. But a lot of interesting things that went on in this game. What went right, what went wrong.
Oh, definitely. Speaking of birthdays, and happy birthday to Mrs. Dennis out there. You raised a fine young, son right here. Fine young man.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I like to use the word young.
Yeah.
Because later on this month, I'm celebrating the 19th anniversary of my 29th birthday. So you go figure that one out.
Yeah.
So.
No, but but really, he's a good man, Mrs. Dennis. So he raised a fine son. So thank you for him and all that, right, and what he does for people, especially at the FDMI. So
now, thank you for making that comment too, for all the emergency service workers out there. We hope you stay safe, and we hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. If there was anything to really enjoy about this Super Bowl, because I feel like there was 4 hours of my life that I'm not going to get back. But there were a couple things about it. There were a couple things aside from the halftime show. Let's just start out. Gladys Knight hit it out of the ballpark. My personal opinion. I thought that was one of the better national anthems and started out really well. I was happy to see. She's a class act. Looked great.
Midnight Train to Georgia.
Did a great job in the national anthem. It kind of went downhill from there, though. It turned out. I have a theory, though, and I just want to hear. I think I know what happened because we're watching, and we saw like a very confused Sean McVay, and the easy explanation is, well, he was just taken to school by a coach who might be the best coach ever. At least in our lifetime, people are comparing him to the Vince Lombardi. I'm not ready to go there, but I have a theory. And it goes, if you watched on Tuesday the State of the Union address, which the people out there that didn't watch it, don't worry, you didn't miss much. These things are usually terrible because it's the president saying what he wants, and half the room is sitting down, half the room is standing. But I know what really happened. If you noticed in the State of the Union address, Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, had papers in her hands, and she was reading it. And to the people viewing it on TV, it looked a little annoying. You're like, what's she doing? She's reading. Now, I know you think it's the State of the Union address. It was not. It was the Rams playbook. It was the Rams playbook that she had, and Sean McVay on Sunday had his plays. It was the State of the Union address. They got mixed up. That's exactly what happened. So Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is looking for the jobs report from the fourth quarter, and she sees 12 personnel counter left, and Sean McVay wants to call 10 personnel spread right, and he's looking at the border wall. That's it. That's the only thing I can think of why they got rolled like that. Speaking of walls, Rams offensive line, no wall there.
Yeah,
no wall there.
This was the same O-line, by the way, that in the divisional game against, sorry to mention it, your Cowboys, they were able to part the seas and give both C.J. Anderson and Gurley the ability to run for a combined 273 yards on them. And yet, the last few weeks, I think Gurley's injury took place. He re-injured his leg in that game. And we saw how it took shape in the NFC title game. And I think it even got worse in this game. Even though he's saying, oh, that's not the case. Yeah, he made an occasional run. The longest run he had was in the second half, a 16-yard. Other than that, most of the first 8 drives of the Rams, all punts. And the longest they've ever, there was one that was like 5 plays and 26 yards. That's it. That's the most they were able to do on one of those first 8 drives. But it wasn't until when they were down 10-3, they had one of the most promising drives of the game. They were going downfield, making some really spectacular throws from Goff, especially the one he made to Robert Woods where he just caught the ball with his hand, able to tumble on the floor with control. And then the next play, he tries to throw it to Brandon Cooks. He's got two cornerbacks on him, and of all people, Deron Harmon, who replaced not Tommy Chung. I'm sorry, Patrick Chung. I keep mixing names. Patrick Chung, and he basically was able to break that pass up, and then on an underthrown pass by Goff, unfortunately picked off by the Patriots. Unfortunate for him. And then they go down the field, the Patriots, and Gostkowski gets the game-ending field goal.
Pretty much at that point.
Yeah.
The Rams' first 8 possessions, they all ended in punts, so you knew where this game was going right away. I pulled up these stats. On their first 8 possessions, they all ended up in punts. They ran 30 plays for 72 yards. On those 8 possessions. That's an average of 2.4 yards per play. They averaged 9 yards. I'm going to say it again for dramatic effect. 9 yards per possession. That's what they averaged in their first 8 possessions. And in that time, 13 minutes and 40 seconds for their 8 possessions. That was through the first 35 minutes of the game. So after the 35-minute mark, which is the second half, the Rams have had the ball for 13 minutes. So even though it was only 3-0 at that point, and you are right, Gurley rips off a 16-yard run at the beginning of the second half, and you're like, wow, here he is. Yeah. Like I'm thinking, Sean McVay is a genius. He's like Mickey telling Rocky to fight right-handed for 14 rounds against Apollo Creed. Now comes out Gurley, and then he just disappeared again. So again, I think the Atlanta Police Department has got Ebola out on Todd Gurley. Where is he? Forget about Carmen Sandiego. Where was Todd Gurley in the Super Bowl? But you hit the nail on the head. He was hurt. I think he was running on a bad knee. Yeah. The last 2 games of the season gutted it out against the Cowboys and had a great effort, but he just was not there. And you're starting to realize now that without Gurley in this lineup, and we also forgot to mention Cooper Kupp, who's been out for half the year. Without those 2 playmakers in this lineup, and without the Rams spreading the Patriots out, Jared Goff looked woefully ineffective in this game.
Imagine if that call wouldn't have blown the NFC title game and the Saints won that game. That would have been a much tougher opponent for the Patriots. So they were lucky they didn't have to play the Saints, because I'll tell you this, if they played the Saints, Alvin Kamara would have spread them as well as Mark Ingram. I think the Saints honestly would have won that game.
It would, it's what ifs. It would have been. I think it would have been a better Super Bowl. I also think it might have been a better Super Bowl, from an offense standpoint, if the Kansas City Chiefs had gone. Also, if Dee Ford wasn't offside near the end of that game, I personally would have wanted to have seen the Chiefs versus the Saints. The Chiefs versus the Rams, I think, would have been a good Super Bowl. Again, I don't want to knock Super Bowl because, again, there's a lot of people out there that did find this Super Bowl enjoyable, and not just Patriots fans, but there were people who do like a defensive struggle. They do like that cat and mouse. They do like that chess match that was going on. But for the vast majority of the 100 million people that are watching this game, they want to see a few more touchdowns. They don't want to just see one touchdown in the game. I didn't even think the halftime show was that good. I mean, did you like the halftime show, Maroon 5, or? I was left unimpressed.
The only thing that was good about it was SpongeBob SquarePants and seeing Squidward. Other or whoever, Mr. Krabby, the bald-headed guy. I'm not a SpongeBob SquarePants fan, as you can tell, so pardon me if I may not know all the characters, but when he introduced Travis Scott and that comet that came into the arena, and then Big Boy coming with that Joe Namath-esque, fur coat on, because, after all, it's 50 years since my beloved Jets won the Super Bowl, so maybe that's why Big Boy wore the fur coat, as like an unofficial
Broadway boy.
Yeah, Broadway.
Instead of Broadway Joe.
Yes.
I'm still a traditionalist when it comes to, I like the halftime shows that just one act, because you're so limited there. By the time you set the stage up, team's in the locker room, you got 20 minutes. So I found like the best acts I liked were when it was U2. Which I still think is one of the best acts I think I've seen, and it was emotional. It was after 9/11. So whether it was U2 or Bruce Springsteen, The Who, Tom Petty, the Rolling Stones, because it was just one act. And speaking of the Rolling Stones, when Adam Levine starts singing, I Got the Moves Like Jagger, I thought that was going to be the surprise. Like maybe Mick Jagger was going to come out of the stage and start shaking it and dancing. I thought that was going to be the big surprise. It just never really got there. And I think...
or Christina Aguilera. I was thinking because she did the song with Adam Levine.
Him, yeah.
I thought she was going to come out at some point. And I also thought because Big Boy was there, I thought Andre 3000 from Outkast, they were going to have some sort of reunion. But the fact that Cardi B was asked to and she refused to, and Rihanna refused to do the Super Bowl, and a lot of these acts, I'm thinking next year, if they're going to get a band, and I hope these two guys can put aside whatever differences they have and come together, Bon Jovi, please do halftime. Come on, Richie and John. I know you had your differences in the past. I know there are issues, between the two of you. But you know what? Set them aside, just like you did for the night you were thankfully inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because you deserved it. But come together for Super Bowl 54 in Miami. Give out your best because you have a great hit list.
No, but it's in Miami. You know it's got to do the Super Bowl. The halftime show in Miami. It's got to be Pitbull.
Oh, please.
No, but it's in Miami. I know.
I
it's
know.
Gotta be
Mr.
Pitbull.
World.
Well, it's Mr. Worldwide. Yeah, it's got to be Pitbull.
If that's, or you have, who's the other guy from Miami too? There's another singer too from Miami as well. The guy who did the song "Wild Ones" with Sia.
Yeah. Oh, Flo Rida.
Yeah, I could
it's workout music.
Yeah, you could possibly see maybe the two of them collaborating, or Taylor Swift. For all the tweens out there.
I would welcome a Taylor Swift halftime show, sure.
Or Ed Sheeran.
I think
Ed Sheeran.
For sure. Well, now you get into another. You get into another level there. Ed Sheeran.
You would kill it.
Sure, you kill it.
You would kill it.
They might break ratings. They might do 120 million next year. Watching just if it was him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like he almost reminded me like Robert De Niro in Cape Fear. I mean, he took off the shirt and it was like all the time. I didn't know whether to listen to the song or read him. I know. I think he's got more ink than Office Max. I really do. I was unimpressed. Listen, I was unimpressed. But by that point, you might have fell asleep already because the game was only 3-0. And again, we had two defenses that just seemed like nobody on the field could make a play other than Julian Edelman. Yeah. That was making all the plays underneath because the Rams defense, contrary to what I thought they should have done last week, I said if I was Sean McVay, I would not want Tom Brady in this game to just slice and dice me and pick me apart and have these long extended drives. And even though he didn't end the drives in touchdowns until near the end, when you mentioned the big pass to Rob Gronkowski and then Sonny Michel hammering it in, finishing it off, Before that, though, Tom Brady was doing enough, and Julian Edelman was doing enough for Bill Belichick to play that chess match, to get close to the midfield so that when his punter was punting, he was pinning the Rams deep inside the 10-yard line. And it is a terrible spot to start from when you have a young quarterback on the biggest stage and you're starting out your drives inside your 10-yard line without a healthy Todd Gurley. And again, I think I mentioned last week about the two tight ends, Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, that I really wanted to see them, spread out. Yeah. Nothing. They had one target between the two of them. So I don't know what Sean McVay's problem was in this game. He was not very creative. Nope. I still think he had the State of the Union address. I'm going back to that. That's my theory, because it's not. He's such a creative coach.
Was not working.
He's a savant out there, and his plays seemed very vanilla. They seemed almost like my Dallas Cowboys offense.
They tried a lot of play action, because that's the thing about the Goff Rams offense, is predicated mostly on play action plays with the occasional run just to dissect the defenses. But when they couldn't get play action going for most of the game, up until that last promising drive, other than that, not getting Higbee or Everett that much involved in the game plan definitely hurt them. The offensive line was Swiss cheese and allowed the Patriots defense to get to Goff 4 times, including on one big sack in the game that Kyle Van Noy had. And when you allow Van Noy or Flowers or that defense line to get in your face, or the fact that Brandon Cooks, who had 8 catches on the day, he did for 120 yards, but he didn't get going till the second half. When you couldn't get him going in the first half, they were terrible. And in terms of first downs, the Patriots outdid them 12-2 statistically in the first half when it came to first downs. 19 minutes the Patriots had the time possession. I was mentioning last week, time possession was going to be a key part of the game, and the Patriots owned time possession. And that's part of the reason why they won, but also Edelman, especially in those underneath throws, the crossing routes, even on one particular throw in the second half, where it was just a simple little dump off screen that he was able to slice in this simple seam pass, and he was able to go for like 25 yards. When he was able to make plays like that, you knew right then and there that this Rams defense, the Rams in general, were in trouble. And he really took them to task with 10 out of 12 catches on 12 targets for 141 yards. Yeah, this is exactly why Edelman became the 7th different receiver to win the MVP. And by the way, how many of those receivers were from the Steelers? 3. Lynn Swann was the very first, then Hines Ward, then Santonio Holmes, and one of the greatest catches, one of my favorite catches of all time, Super Bowl 43.
Was that a catch?
That was definitely a catch. I know that's always debated.
It wasn't a catch for me because I was rooting for the Cardinals in that game. So,
I know.
I wanted Kurt Warner to get a second ring. Huh. Who doesn't love Larry Fitzgerald? We're going to talk about him later, by the way, Larry Fitzgerald, because he just signed an extension, a 1-year extension for $11 million. And that's great to see. I think it almost guarantees he's going to end his career with the Cardinals.
Name the other 4 receivers that won besides Edelman. Besides Edelman.
Besides the other, and the other 3 that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So we got to go. You got to give me a hint on this one. How far back are we going to?
Oakland Raiders, first Super Bowl against the Vikings.
Fred Biletnikoff. There you go. Okay.
He was with the Patriots, Super Bowl 39.
Deion Branch. How did I not get that? Oh, of course.
And of course, the main man that Joe Montana threw to.
And Jerry Rice, yes. Of course.
Yep. Yeah. And that was in the 4th Super Bowl that they won when Jerry Rice, because the first 3, Montana won the MVP, and he was
right.
And I remember the one where they kicked the crap out of the Denver Broncos, 55-10, was the biggest butt whipping of all time.
That was one of the Super Bowls I mentioned last week that I liked to watch it. So how did I not get? But I still remember where I was, and I was watching that Super Bowl, and it was one of those things. Like I said, I generally root for the NFC in these games. Like I said, we mentioned before, had the Chiefs gone, and it was the Chiefs and the Rams, I probably would have rooted for the Chiefs in the game. I do find them a dynamic team. I definitely would root for the Houston Texans if they go to a Super Bowl. I think the amount of the amount of give back to the community that J.J. Watt has done, DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson. That's a team that I like to root for. But honestly, the team I wanted to go there was the Saints. And we are going to talk, I'm sure, later about what's going on in the offseason. Are we going to review instant replay on non-calls, because again, a lot of people are still out there. They're still jaded that the Saints belonged in this game, and I agree with you. I don't want to say the Saints would have won. I think they would have at least made it interesting because they would have spread them out. The Rams did not. The Rams lived this whole season by spreading you out, putting Gurley in the slot. We understand Gurley wasn't healthy, but again, no Cooper Kupp. Josh Reynolds didn't step up in the slot. The two tight ends didn't step up in this game. The Saints would be able to spread you out, and even if you shut down Michael Thomas, you got Kamara out of backfield. You got a healthy Ingram running the ball. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback, Drew Brees. I don't think this game would have been too big for him like it was with Goff.
Because he's been there before.
Yeah, and you do have some speedy receivers because you can beat the Patriots with speed. So maybe a Kirkwood would have looked a little better out there. Robert Woods is not a speed guy. He's a possession guy. He did make a couple good catches. The catch I remember is the sideline catch where he dragged the toe in, which was a phenomenal catch. It was probably the best one he had tonight.
But there was one that was very questionable, but luckily they were able to get the ball off in time. I remember that was in the first half. Otherwise, the Rams were just a pitiful offensive team. But the defense, I have to give it up, though, to the very first drive of the game. When they won the toss and they deferred it, and the Patriots had the ball, and they ran the first 4 possessions with Sonny Michel, then on the 5th possession play of the drive, finally Brady decides to throw the ball, tipped, unfortunately, by Hogan and Nikhil Roby-Coleman into the hands of Corey Littleton. But, of course, did the Rams do anything with it? Of course not.
3 and out. Yep. 3 and out. I don't even know. Did they get any yards off it? 3. I mean, they might have went 3 yards before they punted it back. And the Patriots in that drive, they were driving. Everyone felt they were going to score a touchdown there.
Yeah.
They could have probably just kept running Michelle. They were having their way with the Rams. I don't like deferring in general unless you have a defense like the '85 Bears, the '86 Giants, the 2000 Ravens. Unless your defense is like that, there is no reason to defer, especially on a neutral site. You're not in your home building. You're on a neutral site, which, come on, was that really neutral? About 70% of that, the crowd was, they brought the horn in. Did you hear the foghorn? Like on third down, every time Jared Goff had a third down, you kept hearing, like it sounded like you were in Gillette Stadium. I'm like, did they sneak that horn in? I think about 60 to 70% of the crowd were Patriot fans.
Did they
all sold their yachts in Narragansett to buy football tickets to go to see this game, I think. But they were all there. And again, unless you're a home team, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got a playoff game, you're in Heinz Field, and they're waving the terrible towels. I could see you deferring there, but not in this game. I think McVay should have taken the ball, try to establish something, keep Brady on the sideline, try to ice him a little bit. It obviously wouldn't have worked because, like you said, their offense was woefully ineffective. But here I was thinking, well, the Rams looks like a good move, right? Because they stopped Brady. But they really did kind of get lucky. The ball was tipped. Corey Littleton was in the right position to make that. But again, and then the Rams did nothing with that. They couldn't even get good field position to pin them deep with the punt.
And the moral of this game was defense. Offense wins games, but man, the defense does win championships. And the Patriots basically with their defense did. And of course, it all came down to that final offensive drive, though, for the Patriots. And if it wasn't for those 2 lofting passes to Gronkowski, especially the big one that they were the first team to get inside the opposing team's 10
the red zone, even inside the 20. There was I think that was the first time any team got inside the red zone.
Other than they were the only team. And then basically after that play, Michel up the middle for 2 yards and was the second rookie to do that, and the first rookie to do that since '98 to get a touchdown on the ground. And in this game, there are a lot of stats. The 65-yard punt made by Johnny Heckard. He was more busy this game than he was all season. And then you had the lowest scoring combined points, lowest scoring ever Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl with no touchdowns in the first 3 quarters of the game, the second lowest first half ever since Super Bowl IX that we mentioned earlier. There was the fact that you had the oldest coach, the oldest quarterback to win yet again at 66 for Belichick and 41 for Brady. The youngest coach at 33 for McVay, and the youngest player, to ever be quarterback to be in the Super Bowl. Jared Goff right there,
Right.
and then you also had some of the most.
I think he had the fattest running back too.
Which-
No, I'm joking around. I know. Someone asked me today, goes, well, what about Jerome Bettis? I'm like, I don't know. Jerome Bettis, he looked big, though. He was like,
40.
C.J. Anderson, I said it last week. C.J. Anderson, thank God the Rams wore blue because he is just round. And he looks slow. Do you think they wore down the Rams as the season progressed? That's what I'm trying to say, because it seems like after the Rams lost Cooper Kupp, and I think all the traveling, and then near the end of the year where they had the losses to Chicago, they lost to Philadelphia. There was notions out there that maybe this team was getting tired. And then you said, then they get the home game against Dallas. And you're right, they come out and they look fine. I said, the Rams are back. But then, the Rams are back. But it's against the Cowboys, my Cowboys. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. Then they play New Orleans. They get down early. They should have been blown out of that game. New Orleans lets them back in. They get lucky with the missed call near the end. And then here they are in the Super Bowl. And I know the game looked on TV, right? You're seeing the score and you're seeing 3-0. Then you're seeing 3-3, 10-3. It's like it's only a one-score game. Tony Romo's even saying it's only a one-score game. All they need is a turnover or something. It never felt like the Rams were ever in control of this game. It never felt like, if you were a Patriot fan, even when it was 3-3, I think you went and got a second serving of nachos and maybe grabbed a beer, like the ones that got corn syrup in it, because I know Bud Light said they don't use corn syrup.
Is this yours?
Is this your corn syrup? Yeah.
No, go to the Coors factory. I think they have it. No, it's not all corn syrup. Go to Blue Moon.
Corn syrup. I almost want to write to Bud Light, maybe you should put corn syrup in your beer. It might taste less than dirty dishwater. But
the
best commercial, though, I know where you're going with this.
The best one had to be the cross promotion with Bud Light, which I know is not your favorite beer, but one day
no, but that was my favorite commercial because
Game of Thrones.
But also the Bud Light Knight gets killed in a commercial.
By the Mountain.
By the Mountain from Game of Thrones. So, what better way if you're going to spend $5 million for a commercial, which we were startled last week, right, how much these commercials cost. So if you're going to spend $5 million, you effectively plug two products. So I thought it was genius, whether it was Bud Light sitting down with the HBO or HBO sitting down with Bud Light, but for them to say, hey, listen, we'll give you $2.5 million, you give us $2.5 million, right? We make this commercial and we plug both products. I thought it was classic. It was genius.
How about the reaction of one of the spectators after the Mountain took the Blue Knight's head off? It's like,
Well, that of course was Prince Oberyn's little au pair there. So listen, anyone who has not watched Game of Thrones yet, if you are planning on watching it before the 8th season starts, just turn the volume down a little bit. I don't want to spoil anything for you. But yeah, that was Martell, right? For the Mountain versus the Viper. And the Mountain is crushing the skull of Prince Oberyn. So that was great. And then if you think about all the other things that were involved in that commercial, the Mountain in this commercial dehorses the Bud Light Knight, right?
Yep.
But if you go back to season 1 of Game of Thrones, why that was so great, he was the one who was dehorsed. By who?
By, of course, the Knight of the Roses. Yes, Loras Tyrell.
Loras.
And you know what happened?
The Knight of Flowers.
The Knight of Flowers.
Who brought a mare
Yeah.
to the joust. Who does that? He's smarter than Bill Belichick. He brings a mare. He's kind of like moving the mare around. Yeah. And of course, the Mountain, what does he do? He brings a stallion. You can't bring a stallion to a joust. You got to bring a gelding. Everyone knows that if you read the books. So he gets his horse is all crazy. He gets the horse. He gets off the horse. And then what does he do? Cuts the head of his horse off. Him and the hound are fighting. So here he gets his revenge. He gets his revenge on the Blue Knight. Yep. Everyone's cheering. It's the first time you ever cheer for the Mountain. And then who comes? Drogon.
And then
Classic.
the Bud Light King with that look of shock on his face, and everybody running for cover because they know when you see a dragon coming, you run like hell because you know what's coming next. And they basically saw the flames. Oh my, that was better than any of the. Honestly, I couldn't. The only other commercial that I liked besides that was the trailer for Avengers Endgame. Otherwise, I did not care for any of the commercials that was on Super Bowl night.
What about